3 days. That's how long Ivy Collins had been hiding broken ribs, internal bruising, and a body that screamed in agony every time she moved. 3 days since David Morrison, the logistics manager, who thought no was just foreplay, had cornered her in the parking garage and beaten her until she could barely stand. 3 days of covering bruises with makeup, wearing oversized clothes to hide the damage, and swallowing painkillers like candy just to make it through the workday because she couldn't afford to lose this job. Couldn't afford to be weak. Couldn't afford to let them see her break. But pain doesn't care about bills or deadlines or pride. And on the third day, in the middle of the most important quarterly meeting of the year, surrounded by executives and department heads, Ivy's body finally gave up. She collapsed. But she didn't hit the floor because massive hands, tattooed, powerful, belonging to the most dangerous man in the city, caught her mid-fall. Kong Min-jae, CEO, billionaire, and the Korean Mafia boss who controlled everything and everyone in this building. The man everyone feared. The man who looked at Ivy's broken body and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Some women get saved by princes. Ivy got saved by a monster. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. Have you ever wondered what it takes for someone to finally stop pretending they're okay? What moment breaks through all those walls we build just to survive another day? If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're building a community of people who understand that real life isn't always pretty. And sometimes the darkest places reveal the most unexpected light. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. The Bellix Corporation occupied a 50-story tower in Midtown Manhattan. From the outside, it looked like any other corporate headquarters. Steel and glass, elegant lobby, security guards in crisp uniforms. But everyone who worked there knew the truth. Bellix wasn't just a logistics empire. It was a front for one of the most powerful Korean crime syndicates on the East Coast, and the man at the top, Kong Min-jae, wasn't just a CEO. He was the Dragon of Manhattan, a man whose word was law, whose enemies disappeared, whose very presence made grown men tremble. Ivy Collins had worked at Bellix for 2 years as a senior data analyst in the Strategic Operations Division. She was 27 years old, Black American, 5'6" with deep brown skin, natural hair she usually wore in a professional bun, and dark eyes that missed nothing. She was brilliant at her job, turning raw data into actionable intelligence that had saved the company millions. But she kept her head down, didn't socialize much, didn't draw attention to herself, because in a place like Bellix, being invisible was survival, especially for a woman. Especially for a Black woman in a company run by men who saw employees as either assets or obstacles. For 2 years, her strategy had worked perfectly, until David Morrison decided he wanted her. David Morrison was a logistics manager, 42 years old, white, mediocre at his job, but untouchable because his uncle sat on the board of directors. He had been making comments about Ivy for months, compliments that lingered too long, accidental touches in the break room, emails with subject lines like "drinks tonight" that she always ignored. 2 weeks ago, he'd cornered her in the parking garage. "You keep saying no," he'd said, blocking her path to her car. "But I think you're just playing hard to get." "I'm not playing anything," Ivy had replied, her hand already reaching for her keys, ready to use them as a weapon if needed. "I'm not interested. Please move." See, that's the thing about girls like you. Women. I'm a woman, not a girl. David's smile had turned ugly. Women like you always act so high and mighty, like you're better than everyone else. But I know what you really want. What I want is for you to step aside so I can go home. That's when his hand had grabbed her arm, and Ivy had done what 2 years of self-defense classes had taught her. She'd twisted out of his grip, delivered a sharp strike to his solar plexus, and run for her car. She'd filed an HR complaint the next day. The HR manager, a woman named Patricia who'd been with the company for 15 years, had listened with the kind of expression that said she'd heard it all before. I understand this is difficult, Patricia had said. But David has been with us for 8 years. He has an exemplary record. Are you sure you didn't misinterpret his intentions? He grabbed me in the parking garage after I told him no multiple times. Did anyone witness this? No. Then it's your word against his. And frankly, Ivy, making accusations like this against a senior manager could damage your career here. The message was clear. Drop it or face consequences. Ivy had left that meeting shaking with rage and frustration. But she didn't drop it. She documented everything, saved every inappropriate email, wrote down every incident with dates and times. Because someday, somehow, she was going to make sure David Morrison faced consequences. She just didn't know it would happen 3 days later in the worst possible way. It happened on a Wednesday night. Ivy was working late, not unusual for her. The office was mostly empty, just a few workaholics and cleaning staff. She'd packed up around 9 p.m. and headed for the parking garage. The moment she stepped out of the elevator, her instinct screamed danger. The garage was too quiet. The usual security guard wasn't at his station. She walked quickly toward her car, keys already in hand, pepper spray in her other hand. That's when David stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Working late? His voice echoed in the empty space. Ivy's heart hammered. Stay away from me, David. Or what? You'll file another complaint? He laughed, moving closer. Patricia told me what you said, that I assaulted you. That's a serious accusation, Ivy. Because it's true. No, what's true is that you've been leading me on for months, wearing those tight skirts, smiling at me in meetings, and now you're trying to ruin my career because I finally made a move. I never smiled at you. I never led you on. You're delusional. David's expression twisted with rage. I'm delusional? I'm delusional. He lunged at her. Ivy tried to use her pepper spray, but he was faster, knocking it out of her hand, slamming her against a concrete pillar. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She fought back, knee to the groin, elbow to the face. Everything her instructor had taught her. But David was bigger, stronger, and absolutely furious. You think you're so smart, he snarled, his fist connecting with her ribs. So much better than everyone else. Another punch. Her ribs cracked. But you're nothing. Just another. Ivy's head cracked against the concrete. The world spun. She tried to scream, but his hand clamped over her mouth. The beating seemed to last forever. When it finally stopped, David stood over her crumpled body, breathing hard. You tell anyone about this, he said quietly, and I'll finish the job. Understand? Ivy could barely nod. He left her there, bleeding on the cold garage floor. It took her 20 minutes to crawl to her car, another 10 to drive herself to an urgent care clinic in Queens where nobody would ask questions. The doctor, An older woman who'd clearly seen this before examined her injuries with gentle hands. 2 broken ribs, severe bruising, possible concussion. You need to file a police report. I can't. Why not? Because it won't matter. He's connected. I'm nobody. The system doesn't work for people like me. The doctor had looked at her with such profound sadness. Then at least let me document this in case you change your mind. Ivy had agreed, got the documentation, paid in cash, drove home to her tiny apartment, and then she had made the decision that would define the next 3 days. She would go back to work. She would finish the quarterly report that was due Friday. She would not let David Morrison win, even if it killed her. The quarterly meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. in the executive conference room on the 50th floor. Ivy had woken up that morning barely able to move. Every breath felt like knives in her chest. The bruises had darkened to purple and black, but she'd covered them with makeup, worn an oversized blazer, taken enough painkillers to function, and she'd gone to work. Because given up meant David won. The meeting room was packed. 20 people around a massive conference table, department heads, senior managers, C-suite executives. And at the head of the table, Kong Min-jae himself. Ivy had only seen the CEO in person a handful of times. He rarely attended operational meetings, preferring to delegate to his executives. But the quarterly review was different. This was where he evaluated performance, made decisions about promotions, firings, restructuring. Kong Min-jae was 40 years old, Korean American, born in Seoul but raised in New York. 6'3", broad-shouldered, moving with the kind of controlled power that made people instinctively step aside. His black hair was perfectly styled. His custom suit probably cost more than Ivy's annual rent. But what everyone noticed were the tattoos. Traditional Korean designs that started at his collar and disappeared beneath his clothes. Dragons, tigers, Hanja characters that spelled out power and dominance. He had the kind of face that could be handsome, strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes. But there was nothing soft about Kong Min-jae. He looked exactly like what he was, a predator in expensive clothing. Ivy had presented her data analysis report 15 minutes into the meeting. She'd forced herself to stand, to speak clearly, to ignore the agony radiating from her broken ribs. Her presentation was flawless as always, charts showing efficiency improvements, cost savings, strategic recommendations. When she finished, Min-jae had nodded once. "Excellent work, Miss Collins." Those were the first words he'd ever spoken directly to her, and they should have been the last. But as Ivy sat down, the adrenaline that had been keeping her upright finally crashed. The pain came roaring back, worse than before. Her vision blurred. The room spun. She tried to stand, thinking maybe if she could just get to the bathroom, but her legs wouldn't support her. She felt herself falling, the floor rushing up to meet her. "This is it," she thought. "I'm going to die in a conference room surrounded by people who don't even know my first name." But she didn't hit the floor. Instead, massive hands caught her mid-fall. Strong arms lifted her like she weighed nothing. And when Ivy's eyes fluttered open, she found herself staring up at Kong Min-jae's face. He was holding her. The most dangerous man in New York was cradling her in his arms like she was something precious. "Call Dr. Kim." Min-jae's voice cut through the shocked silence. "Tell him to meet me in my private suite now." "Sir, should we call an ambulance?" Someone started. "I said now." The command was absolute. The entire room fell silent. Min-jae looked down at Ivy, and for just a second his expression softened. "I've got you. You're safe now." Then he walked out of the conference room carrying her like a bride while 20 executives sat frozen in shock. And Ivy, delirious with pain and shock and the surreal impossibility of being held by Kong Min-jae, thought, "This is either salvation or the beginning of something far more dangerous." She just didn't know which yet. Kong Min-jae's private suite occupied the entire 51st floor. Ivy had never been up there. Few people had. It was legendary within the company, the Dragon's Lair where decisions were made that changed lives and ended careers. Min-jae carried her directly to a bedroom that was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Minimalist furniture. A bed that looked like it cost more than her car. He laid her down gently on the bed, then stepped back. "Don't move." It wasn't a request. Ivy wasn't sure she could move even if she wanted to. The pain had reached a level that made breathing difficult. Min-jae was on his phone, speaking rapid Korean. She caught enough to understand he was giving orders. Someone named Dante was being dispatched somewhere. Dr. Kim was being summoned. Security protocols were being activated. Then he ended the call and turned his full attention to Ivy. And that's when she realized something terrifying. She'd never actually looked directly at Kong Min-jae before. She'd seen him in meetings, but always from a distance, always with her eyes down, the way employees learn to survive in his presence. But now, lying on his bed, she was forced to meet his gaze. His eyes were dark, intense, absolutely focused on her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Who did this to you?" His voice was quiet, controlled, but underneath she heard something that made her blood run cold. Fury. "I don't lie to me, Ivy." He said her first name like he'd been saying it for years. "I've been watching you for 6 months. I know when you're in pain. I know when you're hiding something. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Who did this to you?" Ivy's mind raced. How did he know her first name? Why had he been watching her? "I fell," she whispered. "In the parking garage. It was an accident." Min-jae's jaw tightened. He moved closer to the bed, looming over her. "Show me your injuries." "What?" "Show me." "I can't." "Ivy." His voice dropped to something almost gentle. "I'm going to find out either way. You can show me now, or Dr. Kim will show me in 10 minutes. Your choice." She stared at him. This powerful man who could destroy her with a word, and realized she had no choice. With shaking hands, she unbuttoned her blazer, lifted the oversized shirt she'd worn to hide the damage. Min-jae's expression didn't change, but she saw his hands clench into fists. Her entire torso was a canvas of purple and black bruises, some old enough to have turned yellow at the edges, some fresh enough that they were still swelling. "Jesus Christ," Min-jae breathed. "How long?" "3 days." "And you came to work, presented in the meeting, hid this from everyone." "I couldn't afford not to." His eyes snapped to hers. "Explain." So Ivy told him everything. David Morrison, the harassment, the HR complaint that went nowhere, the attack in the parking garage, the threat to finish the job if she told anyone. She told him because what did it matter now? She'd already collapsed, already shown weakness. Her career at Bellix was over anyway. Might as well go down telling the truth. When she finished, the silence in the room was absolute. Then Min-jae pulled out his phone and made a call. Dante, find David Morrison, logistics manager. Works on the 32nd floor. Bring him to warehouse 3 within the hour. A pause. Alive, but barely. He hung up, looked at Ivy. You're under my protection now. That means you stay here until you're healed. You don't go back to your apartment. I'll have your things brought here. You don't go back to work. I'll handle your assignments. And you sure as hell don't worry about David Morrison ever again. You can't. I can do whatever I want. I own this building. I own this company. And as of right now, I own your safety. His expression softened slightly. You should have come to me. I didn't think you knew I existed. Something flickered in his eyes. I've known you existed since your first day. You're the only person in this building who looks at data the way I do, who sees patterns others miss, who actually gives a damn about making things better instead of just collecting a paycheck. Ivy stared at him in shock. You've been watching me. For 6 months. Ever since you identified the embezzlement scheme in the shipping division that my CFO missed. That was just numbers. That was brilliance. And bravery. Considering you reported it even though the CFO could have destroyed your career. He paused. I wanted to promote you then, but you weren't ready. Ready for what? For this. For being close to me. For understanding what that means. Before Ivy could ask what he meant, there was a knock on the door. Dr. Kim entered. An older Korean man with a medical bag who took one look at Ivy's injuries and immediately got to work. The examination was thorough and painful. 2 broken ribs confirmed. Severe bruising across her torso and back. Possible kidney damage. Mild concussion. She needs bed rest, pain management, and someone should press charges against whoever did this, Dr. Kim said, looking at Min-jae. I'll handle it, Min-jae replied. Dr. Kim nodded, clearly understanding what that meant. I'll come back tomorrow to check on her. Call me if anything changes. After the doctor left, Min-jae sat in a chair beside the bed. Sleep, he said. You're safe here. What are you going to do to David? Ivy asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Nothing you need to worry about. Min-jae. Kong, he corrected gently. Mr. Kong, if you prefer formality, but not Min-jae. Mr. Kong, I don't want you to kill him. His smile was cold. I'm not going to kill him. That would be too quick. I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what happens to men who hurt what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet, he agreed, but you will be. And with that cryptic statement he stood and walked out, leaving Ivy alone with painkillers, confusion, and the terrifying realization that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Ivy woke up 6 hours later in a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the pain in her ribs reminded her, and everything came flooding back. The collapse. Min-jae catching her. The private suite. His promise of protection. She sat up carefully, her body screaming in protest. Someone had changed her clothes while she slept. She was now wearing a soft, oversized t-shirt and comfortable pants. Her dirty clothes were gone. On the nightstand was a bottle of water, pain medication, and a note in elegant handwriting. Take the pills. Eat the food in the kitchen. Don't leave the suite. I'll be back by midnight. MJ Ivy looked at the clock. 8:47 p.m. She was alone in the dragon's lair. Despite the pain, curiosity got the better of her. She slowly made her way out of the bedroom. The suite was stunning. Modern, expensive, but also lived in. not just a showpiece. There were books on the shelves, Korean literature mixed with business strategy and philosophy, a state-of-the-art kitchen that looked actually used, photographs on the wall of what looked like Min-jae's family, parents, siblings, people who smiled in a way that reminded her he was human. The whole space felt like a contradiction. The feared mafia boss who read poetry and kept family photos. She found the kitchen stocked with enough food to feed an army. Someone had clearly anticipated her waking up hungry. As she heated up soup, her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "This is Dante. Boss wanted you to know David Morrison has been dealt with. He'll live, but he'll never work again. His uncle has been removed from the board. The HR manager who ignored your complaint has been terminated. Sleep well." Ivy stared at the message. Less than 12 hours. That's all it had taken for Min-jae to dismantle David Morrison's entire life. Part of her should have been horrified. Instead, she felt a dark satisfaction that scared her a little. She was still processing this when the elevator to the suite opened and Min-jae walked in. He looked different. His suit jacket was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing more of the intricate tattoos that covered his forearms. There was blood on his knuckles. Their eyes met across the open space. "You should be resting," he said. "I was hungry." "Good. You need to eat." He walked to the kitchen sink, washing his hands methodically. The blood swirled down the drain. Ivy should have been terrified. Instead, she asked, "Did you hurt him?" "Yes." "Badly?" "Very." "Good." Min-jae's eyes snapped to hers. Something heated flickered in their depths. "You're not going to ask me to show mercy? Tell me violence isn't the answer?" "Would it matter if I did?" "No." "Then why would I waste my breath?" Ivy set down her soup. "He beat me until I could barely breathe. He threatened to finish the job if I told anyone. He would have kept doing it to me or some other woman unless someone stopped him." "And you wanted him stopped." "I wanted him destroyed." Min-jae smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "I knew you were perfect." "Perfect for what?" He moved closer, and her breath caught. Even injured, even exhausted, her body responded to his proximity. "For me." He said it simply. "You're strong, smart. You don't break when the world tries to bend you. You understand that sometimes justice isn't legal. It's necessary. I understand that I'm alive because you decided to protect me. That makes me indebted to you." "I don't want your debt, Ivy." "Then what do you want?" Min-jae reached out, gently tucking a strand of her natural hair behind her ear. The gesture was surprisingly tender from hands that had just delivered violence. "I want you to stay here until you're healed. I want you to let me protect you. And when you're ready, when you're healthy and whole and can make a real choice, I want you to choose me anyway. You barely know me. I know you better than you think. 6 months of watching someone work, seeing how they handle pressure, observing who they are when they think no one's looking. That tells you everything. That's stalking. Call it what you want. I call it recognizing something valuable when I see it." Ivy should have been offended, should have demanded to leave, should have filed her own HR complaint. Instead, she asked, "What if I choose not to choose you?" "Then I'll respect that. You'll still have your job, still have my protection. I'm a lot of things, Ivy, but I don't force women. Ever." The sincerity in his voice made her believe him. "And if I do choose you, what does that mean? Being with the Dragon of Manhattan? Minjae's smile turned dangerous. It means you belong to the most powerful man in the city. It means no one ever hurts you again. It means luxury, protection, and a life most people can't imagine. And what do you get? Someone who sees me as more than the monster. Someone brilliant enough to challenge me. Someone brave enough to stand beside me instead of cowering behind me. He cupped her face gently. Someone I can build an empire with instead of just ruling one alone. Ivy's heart was pounding. You're talking about a relationship, a real one. I'm talking about everything. But first, you heal. No pressure, no expectations. Just stay. Let me take care of you, and we'll see where it goes. It was insane. Completely insane. She'd known this man for all of 6 hours as anything other than her terrifying CEO. But something about the way he looked at her, like she was precious, powerful, worth protecting, made her want to say yes to this madness. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stay until I'm healed. Then we'll see. Minjae's smile could have lit up the entire city. That's all I'm asking. He kissed her forehead. Chaste, gentle, completely at odds with his fearsome reputation. Now finish your soup and get back to bed. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. No, but I'm the dragon, and you're going to learn that when I give an order, even you obey. It should have sounded threatening. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in Ivy's stomach. Oh, she was in trouble. Big, dangerous, tattooed trouble. And for the first time in 3 days, she felt something other than pain. She felt alive. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange, dreamlike state. Ivy recovered in Minjae's penthouse suite, seeing no one but him, Dr. Kim, and occasionally Dante, Minjae's right-hand man who turned out to be surprisingly gentle for an enforcer. Her ribs healed slowly. The bruises faded from purple to yellow to gone. The pain became manageable, then minimal, then just a memory. During that time, she got to know Kong Min-jae in ways she never expected. He worked from the suite most days, handling business from a home office while she rested. She'd hear him on calls, sometimes in English, sometimes in Korean, making decisions that affected thousands of people. But he always made time for her. Morning coffee together where he'd ask about her pain levels and make sure she took her medication. Lunch deliveries from expensive restaurants where he'd insist she try new food she'd never experienced. Evenings watching movies or discussing books where she discovered he had opinions on everything from philosophy to K-dramas. He was brilliant, well-read, surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. And he never once pushed her for more than she was ready to give. Until the night she initiated it. 3 weeks after the collapse, Dr. Kim gave her medical clearance. Your ribs are healed. You can return to normal activities, though I'd avoid any extreme physical exertion for another week. That evening, Ivy found Min-jae in the kitchen cooking. She'd learned he actually enjoyed it, said it helped him think. Dr. Kim cleared me today, she said, leaning against the counter. Min-jae's hands stilled on the knife he was using to chop vegetables. That's good news. Which means I should probably go back to my apartment, back to work. He set down the knife carefully, turned to face her. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want, Ivy admitted. 3 weeks ago, I was just trying to survive each day. Now I'm living in a penthouse with a man who terrifies half the city but makes me feel safer than I've ever felt in my life. I don't terrify you. You should, but you don't. She took a breath. I keep thinking about what you said, about choosing you when I was ready. He moved closer. Ivy, I'm ready. The air between them crackled with tension. You're sure? His voice had dropped to something rough, dangerous. I'm sure, because once I have you, Ivy, I'm not letting you go. Is that a threat? It's a promise. And then he was kissing her. Not gentle like the forehead kiss from weeks ago. This was heat and hunger and weeks of restraint finally breaking. Ivy gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss, his hands tangling in her natural hair. She'd been kissed before, but never like this. Never with the intensity of a man who'd been waiting for permission to devour her. Minjae lifted her onto the kitchen counter, stepping between her legs, his hands spanning her waist. 3 weeks, he growled against her neck. 3 weeks of having you here, seeing you in my space and not being able to touch you. You could have asked. Not while you were hurt. Not while you were vulnerable. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes dark with desire. I told you. When we finally did this, I wanted you healthy and whole. I'm healthy now. Thank God. He kissed her again, and Ivy lost herself in the sensation, his hands on her body, careful of her still healing ribs, his mouth doing things that made her forget her own name. Then his phone rang. Minjae pulled back with a frustrated growl, checking the screen. It's Dante. I have to answer. Then answer it, Ivy said, breathless. He did, speaking rapid Korean while keeping one hand on her waist, like he couldn't bear to completely let her go. When he hung up, his expression was apologetic. There's a situation at one of the warehouses. I need to handle it personally. Now? Unfortunately. Ivy slid off the counter, adjusting her clothes. Then go handle it. Ivy. I'm not going anywhere. You said it yourself. You're not letting me go. So handle your business. I'll be here when you get back. He cupped her face, kissing her hard and fast. When I get back, we're finishing this conversation. Is that a threat or a promise? Both. He left, and Ivy touched her lips, still tingling from his kiss. She was in so deep. And the terrifying part? She didn't want to climb out. Minjae returned 4 hours later looking exhausted but satisfied. Ivy was in his bedroom. She'd stopped pretending she was staying in the guest room 2 weeks ago. She was reading a book. He stood in the doorway, just watching her. Problem solved? She asked. For now. He started unbuttoning his shirt. Someone thought they could skim from my operations. They learned otherwise. Should I ask what learned otherwise means? Probably not. Ivy set down her book. Minjae, I need to understand something. What you do. The violence, the control, the fear. I've accepted that's part of who you are. But I need to know where the line is. He sat on the edge of the bed. What do you mean? I mean, do you kill people who cross you? Do you torture them? Do you... Yes, sometimes. When necessary. His honesty was brutal. And that doesn't bother you? It bothers me that I have to do it. But I run an empire built on fear and respect. If I show weakness, I lose everything. People die. My people. Innocent people. If I don't maintain control. He turned to look at her. I've done terrible things, Ivy. I'll probably do more terrible things. If you can't accept that, tell me now, before this goes any further. Ivy thought about David Morrison, about the HR system that failed her, about how the legal way had left her beaten and broken. and she thought about how Min-jae's illegal way had given her justice in hours. "I'm not saying I agree with everything you do," she said carefully, "but I understand why you do it, and I'm not going to judge you for surviving in a world that doesn't follow normal rules." "You're not what I expected." "Meaning? What did you expect?" Min-jae said softly. "Someone who tried to change me, make me softer, turn me into something I'm not. I don't want to change you. I want to understand you." He moved closer, his hand finding hers. "What if understanding me means accepting darkness? Everyone has darkness, Min-jae. You're just more honest about yours." He kissed her then. Slow, deep, full of something that felt like more than desire. When they finally broke apart, Ivy whispered, "Earlier, in the kitchen, you said when you got back we'd finish our conversation." "I did say that. I'm healed. I'm whole. And I'm choosing you." Min-jae's eyes darkened. "You're sure?" "Completely, because once we cross this line—" "I know. You're not letting me go. You've said that multiple times." She smiled. "Maybe I don't want to be let go." That was all the permission he needed. He kissed her with an intensity that made her earlier kisses feel like practice. His hands were everywhere. Her hair, her waist, her thighs, but always careful. Always aware of her still healing body. "You tell me if anything hurts," he commanded against her neck. "I will." "Promise me." "Ivy, I promise." What happened next was everything she'd imagined and nothing like she'd expected. Min-jae made love to her like she was something precious he'd been waiting his whole life to claim. Gentle when she needed it, demanding when she asked for more, always watching her face, reading her reactions, adjusting to what she needed. Afterward, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, both breathing hard. "That was—" Ivy started. "Everything," Min-jae finished. He pulled her against his chest and she felt his heartbeat. Rapid, strong, alive. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I've been watching you for 6 months and having you here for 3 weeks, and I'm absolutely certain I love you." Ivy should have been scared by the declaration. Instead, she felt peace. "I think I love you too," she whispered, "which is either the smartest or stupidest thing I've ever admitted." "Probably both." They lay in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ivy asked, "What happens now? With work? With everything?" "Now you move into the suite permanently, not as my employee hiding from danger, as my partner. Tomorrow I'm promoting you to Director of Strategic Operations. Your office will be next to mine. People will talk? Let them. You earned that position months ago. I'm just finally giving it to you." "And David Morrison? Will never work in this city again. He's blacklisted. His uncle resigned in disgrace. He'll spend the rest of his life knowing he destroyed his career by touching something that wasn't his." "What about the HR manager?" "Fired. I'm restructuring the entire department. There will be a new system for reporting harassment. Anonymous. Investigated by external auditors. No more protecting predators." Ivy pulled back to look at him. "You're changing company policy because of what happened to me." "I'm changing it because it should have been changed years ago. You just made me see how broken the system was." She kissed him softly. "Thank you." "For what? For catching me? For protecting me? For making me feel like I matter?" Min-jae's arms tightened around her. "You do matter. You matter more than anything else in this empire I've built." And in that moment, Ivy believed him. The Dragon of Manhattan, feared by thousands, respected by millions, looked at her like she was his entire world. And maybe falling hadn't been the worst thing to happen to her. Maybe it had been the beginning of everything. 2 months later, Ivy stood on the balcony of what was now officially their penthouse, looking out over Manhattan. So much had changed. She was director of strategic operations now, the youngest person to ever hold that position at Bellex. Her team respected her. Her recommendations were implemented. She was making real change in the company, and she came home every night to the most powerful man in the city. Min Jae joined her on the balcony, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How 3 months ago I was hiding bruises and just trying to survive each day, and now you're here." "With you," she agreed. The feared mafia boss who turned out to have a gentle heart underneath all the tattoos and terror. "Only for you. Everyone else still gets the terror." She laughed, leaning back against his chest. "I love you. I love you too." He was quiet for a moment. "Move in with me officially. Not just staying here because you're recovering. Make this place ours." Ivy turned in his arms. "Are you asking me to live with you?" "I'm telling you that I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. So yes, move in officially." "You're very demanding." "It's one of my more charming qualities." "I wouldn't call it charming, but you love it anyway." She did. God help her, she did. "Okay. Okay. I'll move in officially. Make this place ours." Min Jae's smile could have powered the entire city. He kissed her deeply, and Ivy felt the same heat that had been there that first night in the kitchen. "You know what the best part is?" he asked against her lips. "What?" "When you collapsed in that meeting, I thought I was catching you because you were falling." "I was." "No, I was catching you because you were finally letting yourself be caught. For 3 days, you'd been holding yourself up through sheer will. And when you couldn't anymore, instead of hitting the ground alone, you trusted that someone would be there." Ivy's eyes filled with unexpected tears. "I didn't trust it. I just gave up. But I was there anyway, and I always will be." She kissed him, pouring 3 months of gratitude and love and trust into the gesture. When they finally broke apart, she whispered, "Falling was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I caught you. Because you were there to catch me in the first place." They stood on the balcony overlooking the city Min Jae controlled, and Ivy was learning to navigate. Two people who should never have worked, but somehow fit perfectly. The dragon and his chosen queen. The monster and the woman who saw the man underneath. And as Manhattan glittered below them, Ivy realized something profound. Sometimes salvation doesn't come from being strong enough to stand alone. Sometimes it comes from being brave enough to fall, knowing the right hands will catch you. And Min Jae's hands, tattooed, powerful, capable of terrible violence, had proven to be exactly the right hands after all.